Welcome to the chaotic afterlife of Resident Evil, where zombies roam, mutations abound, and survival is just a hilarious twist away. This time around, Alice and the gang are back, along with some new friends to join the series. Gone are the expansive sets of the first 3 films, and are replaced with green screen sets, cutting-edge 3D technology, and Paul W.S. Anderson back in the director's chair? Did he finally bring the film series back to its original roots? Does making this film in 3D make for a better viewing experience? Are we, as audience members, gifted with the best film in the series so far? Today on Horror Revisited, get ready to laugh, scream, and wonder why on earth you keep coming back for more in the next installment of the franchise, Resident Evil Afterlife.
Hurts, doesn't it? Well, that's just the start of the bad news.
Nice hearing from you, Carlos.
With 3 films under their belt, Sony Pictures and Screen Gems knew a 4th film was inevitable. But if you were to go on the official website of Resident Evil Extinction back in 2007, it would state that this was the final entry of the film series. Oh, what the power of money and ending on a cliffhanger will do. That being said, the head of Sony's distribution, Rory Brewer, said, quote, "It absolutely would not surprise me, considering the success of the franchise, that they find a way to come up with another. It's a real possibility," end quote. In 2008, Paul W.S. Anderson was in negotiations for a 4th film to happen, as well as writing the script for it. The film was then set for a tentative release on August 27, 2010. Anderson's script would be based loosely on Resident Evil 5. Certain pieces of the game were included, such as the mind control devices and Chris's confrontation with the evil Albert Wesker. We would also see the Mejani lifted from the game as well, but more on that later. Since Alice was going to make a return, Milla Jovovich would come back and reprise her iconic role. The story would continue where the last film left off, so naturally Ali Larter as well as Spencer Locke would return as Claire Redfield and Kmart. But we're introduced to a whole helping of new characters, even one replacing a huge antagonist, so let's dig into that. For anyone who's seen Resident Evil Extinction, we were introduced to Albert Wesker. He was played by Jason O'Mara. Unfortunately, Jason didn't return for Afterlife to reprise the role. Instead, he was replaced by Sean Roberts. If you have watched the film, you may be asking yourself why. He does such a great job, and he was pretty memorable. During casting, Sean auditioned for the role of Chris Redfield. That role would go to Wentworth Miller. Sean had done such a great job that he landed the part of Wesker after a successful audition. I know we just praised Jason for the role, but hear me out on this. Sean embodies Albert Wesker so well that it feels like I'm watching the video game character come to life. On to the other new faces. We just mentioned that Chris Redfield, a major Resident Evil franchise character, would finally make his on-screen debut. Wentworth Miller, the guy from Prison Break, he was cast for the role. He had never played any games in the series, so he would prepare for the role by searching the internet for images and noticed how buff the character is. Unfortunately, he didn't have too much time to prepare for the role. He would do cardio to build up endurance and described his take on the character as, quote, "He's definitely capable and heroic, but there's also something quite innocent," end quote. Boris Kojo, Kim Coates, Casey Clark, Norman Yang, and Sergio Paris Manchetta all join the ride for the Afterlife. If you've been tuning into our take on this series, you'll know we have a true love for the character of Jill Valentine. To the team's dismay, she wasn't in Extinction, which made the film feel slightly off. In this case, we were excited as hell to see that Jill Valentine does make an appearance again. Granted, it's for a minute and sets her character up for the next film, but it was still wonderful to know she would be coming back.
You are gonna be in for the fight of your lives.
As we stated in the beginning of the episode, Paul W.S. Anderson really said, "Hold my beer," and returned to direct. I'm guessing he had enough of telling each director what he wanted to see and just wanted to take control. With that being said, he did return to produce and write the script as well. Since he was overseeing everything, he would try to venture the series into new territory, 3D. Back in 2009, Anderson was shown footage of James Cameron's upcoming epic Avatar. Paul would take into account many things and try to replicate what Cameron did. He would add 3D into the story to heighten the impact of scenes by adding depth and dimension to the visuals, making them more engaging and immersive for audiences. Since Resident Evil Afterlife was relatively new territory to the 3D genre, Anderson knew there would be a surge in popularity of this retooled format.
This is my punishment for letting all this happen.
Resident Evil Afterlife was shot on the same camera system as Avatar and The Final Destination, which is the Fusion camera system. This digital movie camera system was developed by James Cameron and Vince Pace. It was created to shoot features in stereoscopic 3D. While Avatar and other films used the Sony HDC f950 cameras, Afterlife stuck with Sony f35 cameras. The crew would spend 2 weeks alone just to understand the 3D camera setup. Principal photography for the film began on September 29, 2009, and lasted until December of that same year. The production budget was estimated around $60 million, and 20% of that consisted of the film being shot in 3D. In the film, there is a fight scene recreated from the video game Resident Evil 5 between Wesker and Chris. This scene would incorporate slow motion, among other action scenes in the film. Bringing to life slow motion scenes was no easy task. Wesker has superhuman speed, so not only did it take multiple days just to record that, but the weight of the 3D cameras were much bigger and heavier. This meant the operators couldn't use a Steadicam rig for easy fluid moments of shots. Camera operators were reduced to using a Segway to capture the shots. 3D cameras weren't able to pick up anything shiny due to a flare, so Cal Lokes, the hired set decorator, said that objects in the film that were metal were painted silver with a special paint to remove reflections. He also mentioned that the colors of the film had to be saturated because of the 3D cameras, and that resulted in a restrictive color palette. Most of the film was shot at Cinescape Film Studios in Toronto, Ontario, with tons of green screen sets. For the epic opening of the film, the crew had to film an interior reminiscent of Umbrella Corporation's subterranean lair. This was filmed at the Leslie Dan Faculty of Pharmacy, which is also located in Toronto. Robarts Library, which was also in Toronto, was used to resemble a Los Angeles prison. Anderson really flexed his budget and went to Oshawa Airport in Ontario to portray an Alaskan aircraft boneyard. The second unit of the film was actually sent to Alaska to capture some establishing shots. Lots of these shots would be completely retweaked into post-production to give a more apocalyptic feel, as shown in the movie.
Before we continue with our video, here's a reminder to click the Store tab on any of our JoBlo channels and browse our collection of the latest and freshest designs in our merch store. Go get you some.
Speaking of post-production, the visual effects this time around were done by Rocket Science VFX, as well as the returning favorite, Mr. X Inc. Paul Jones, who helped create Nemesis back in Resident Evil Apocalypse, was hired as the special effects creator. 150 zombies, extras, were used to portray wide shots of the undead decimating Los Angeles. But of course, Mr. X Inc. added tons more.
Hey boys, is that any way to treat a lady?
We can't forget about Alice's doubles though. The team would shoot motion control photography for multiple passes of Mila, giving the look and feel of more than one Alice at a time. Some new monsters would come into play as well. While fan favorite infected Dobermans would come back, they weren't going to be the run-of-the-mill zombie dogs. This time they were infected Majani Dobermans. These are creatures from Resident Evil 5 who are more intelligent and have mandibles and tentacles coming out of their mouths. We are also introduced to the best baddie in the film, the Executioner. He is a straight up badass, wielding his axe ready to take out any foe in front of him. I've always thought he was the better adversary over Nemesis, but to each their own. One thing that is vital to a film engaging with its audience is its score. Whether you have famous names like Marco Beltrami, Marilyn Manson, or Charlie Clouser, your ears are bound to have a good time. For the Resident Evil film series, their composers feel strikingly similar to the Defense Against the Dark Arts position at Hogwarts. What I mean is, this time around we are graced with somebody else, such as the likes of Tom and Dandy, who had previously composed scores for the Rules of Attraction, the Hills Have Eyes remake, and the Mothman Prophecies. Their score features a blend of electronic and orchestral elements, which created a tense and atmospheric backdrop. It does enhance the action and horror, and feels like a pretty serviceable add-on in the film. So, what you've all been waiting for, the plot of this movie. It begins with an assault on Umbrella headquarters in Tokyo by Alice and her clones. She's able to kill everyone except Wesker, who flees in his plane and detonates the facility. Alice stows away and tries to kill him, but is stabbed by his antivirus serum, removing her superhuman abilities. As the plane crashes, both Alice and Wesker flee, and 6 months pass. Alice continues searching for survivors, which leads her to the safe haven in Alaska, which was mentioned in the previous film. She finds Claire, who has a spider-like device strapped to her chest. Claire doesn't recognize Alice, but eventually they travel to LA and find a prison full of survivors. It's there we meet Chris Redfield, Claire's brother, and he begs Alice to help him escape for being falsely imprisoned in exchange for providing an escape route. However, their journey takes a dangerous turn when they discover the supposed broadcast safe haven, Arcadia, is a vessel that has been housing all of the rest of the survivors in prisons, led by Wesker. As Alice confronts her own past and the true nature of her existence, she must rally her allies and unleash her formidable skills to stop Umbrella's sinister agenda once and for all.
I always knew you'd be drawn to your friends. Loyalty, highly overrated.
Resident Evil Afterlife opened in theaters on September 10th, 2010, instead of its tentative release date in August. It would be the only new release of that week, coming in at first place, dethroning the previous week's #1 film, The American, aka George Clooney's assassin film. It grossed $26.6 million on opening weekend. In the film's second week, it would drop to 4th place and would take a 63% loss in ticket sales. By its third week, the film would fall to 7th place, and on its 4th week, would completely leave the top 10. Domestically, it would only make $60 million. In other markets, the film did really well, grossing $240 million, ending its theatrical run with a worldwide total of $300 million. Screen Gems would pay Constantin Film, Davis Films, and Impact Pictures $52 million for the rights to distribute the film in North America and other key foreign markets. When released, the film had opened in 4,700 screens in 3,203 different locations, with over 2,000 of those locations showcasing the 3D technology. It would also be released in IMAX 3D and would, at the time, rank as one of the largest 3D releases. As per usual, Sony would not screen the film in advance for critics, and it currently sits at a 21% on Rotten Tomatoes, with the consensus statement, as dim-witted and lifeless as its undead antagonist, Resident Evil Afterlife is a wholly unnecessary addition to the franchise. Michael Ordana of the Los Angeles Times said some positive things about the slower action scenes, saying that it was easier to see and take in compared to most films in that genre. Others, while not liking the film, praised the use of 3D and would be called sleek and well staged. Surprisingly, the film would be nominated for several awards, including Favorite Horror Movie at the People's Choice Awards, as well as several technical achievements at the Genie Awards. Mila would win at the Scream Awards for Best Science Fiction Actress. Resident Evil Afterlife released on DVD, Blu-ray, and Blu-ray 3D on December 28, 2010. Special features included filmmaker commentary, featurettes, deleted and extended scenes, and outtakes. 2013 saw the release of a 2-disc set that housed the first 4 films, entitled the 4-Movie Resident Evil Collection. Pretty original name. In January of 2017, to coincide with the final film, a 4K version would be released in stunning Ultra HD Blu-ray.
Why are we waiting? Excuse me, I'm hungry. Thank you.
Get out of here.
Thank you.
Sometimes when we revisit films, we usually notice new things that either weren't appreciated the first time around, or even a newfound feeling towards the movie. Besides the action, this film felt as artificial and hollow as its green screen backgrounds. This is a franchise that I truly enjoy, as well as others, but nothing vibed this time around. I can forgive Apocalypse for being a misstep over the wholly entertaining first film, but everything just feels fake. The plot feels like an afterthought in so many ways, and any fan of the video game knows how badly they did Chris Redfield during this and after the movie. Now that I've said my piece, I will praise Anderson and crew for their work on the special effects. Everything, and I mean everything about them, are gorgeous. Experiencing this in theaters in 2010 with my 3D glasses was not only a sight to behold, but at a crisp 97 minutes kept my attention. Even upon revisiting on my Blu-ray player, the video quality is top-notch. The visuals are stunning and provide tons of immersion.
Hi, my name's Crystal.
Enough with the introductions.
With those visual effects, we are blessed with some very fun scenes. The opening scene alone, which feels like the climax, is just pure visual perfection. It felt like Anderson saying to the audience,
Hello, boys! I'm
I had the biggest smile on my face watching Alice and her clones destroy the Umbrella Corporation's headquarters. It replicates the climax of The Matrix almost perfectly, but stands on its own as a highlight of not just this movie, but of the whole series. The Axe fight scene is another high-octane battle between Alice and the formidable Executioner. Set within the confines of a prison facility, the scene unfolds with heart-pounding intensity as the Executioner proves to be a formidable adversary, swinging his weapon with deadly force as Alice navigates the narrow corridors in search of a way to defeat him. The tension mounts as Alice narrowly dodges each blow. Last but not least, let's discuss the climactic battle on board the Arcadia. Alice, alongside her allies, confronts Albert Wesker. The scene unfolds with explosive action and high stakes. The battle is a test of wills and strength as both sides engage in a fierce struggle for survival. In conclusion, even though the 3D craze has fizzled out, Resident Evil Afterlife shines with its pulse-pounding visuals. Its intense action sequences and impressive visual effects offer a thrilling cinematic experience for fans of the franchise. It does look and feel to be the closest so far to its video game counterpart, but with an over-reliance on flashy visuals and action sequences, the story falls short on character development and depth. With that being said, Mila delivers on the action as Alice, and the film keeps audiences engaged from start to finish. While some may think that it is a misstep in the film series, Resident Evil Afterlife slowly chugs along with its world-building, gun-wielding, zombie-fighting self and cements its place in the Resident Evil universe. Since the film ends on a cliffhanger, we would get a follow-up in 2012 entitled Resident Evil Retribution. So how about it? Would you like us to load up our weapons and continue covering the series? Let us know in the comments.
If you are out there, we will help you. There is hope.